Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law. And I'm here tonight with Louisiana author Tracy Carnes, who is going to be with me as we discuss the film, the Johnny Depp 1990 film, Edward Scissorhands. Now, I want you to recognize, Heidi and I were talking on it in the car today. That is a 31-year-old film.
It's unbelievable. It's that old, and it was one of Johnny Depp's first big films after 21 Jump Street.
Yes. And the thing about it is, it struck a chord with me because I was a hairdresser, and here's this, guy that is looking very different, very goth, very unusual, whose hands instead of fingers have scissors. And how he did that in that movie was amazing. But Johnny Depp, I've kind of followed really the trajectory of all of his film, and he's been quite in the limelight lately with the obvious, court cases with his ex-wife Amber Heard. But I just watched a new film with him where he plays a photographer that was just fantastic. Did you see the film about him playing this real life photographer who
I did.
I can't think of the name of it right off the handle.
Plays the war correspondent.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating.
I love that.
The span of the type of films that Johnny Depp has been in, and I am convinced he's one of the most talented guys on the planet because he went to Hollywood, Beverly Hills, to become a musician, and he's in a band, and he is really good. I've seen his songs, he's performed, and he now has become an artist too. He is just had a big show raising money. I mean, it was amazing. I think he made like $3 million off the sale of his paintings at his last show. He's truly one of the most interesting actors in Hollywood. And this film kind of set a precedent that he was doing a little different films, like What's Eating Gilbert Grape was fantastic. Cry Baby. I mean, he's done so many. Hunter S. Thompson. He's done so many different films, and of course the series Pirates of the Caribbean. But we're going to come back to the film. It starred Winona Ryder, and it was considered, according to the little biography I read about it, a fairy tale of sorts. And all I know, I was lost in the very stylistic capturing of this certain time period where everything was.
Yeah. I don't think it's supposed to have any real time. It's supposed to be a bit fantastical with the colors and the cars and the people, and it's not, parts of it were 80s, parts of it were the 60s and the 50s. It was kind of an amalgamation, and apparently that was meant to be fantastical, not from the eyes of the time period, but through the eyes of Edward. So he's seeing this as a fantasy world. So you see the contrast of where he lived, which was almost black and white, to the colorful world of suburbia.
It's one of my most favorite films. In fact, years ago, I went as Edward Scissorhands for Halloween, and nobody could believe it was me. Because I dressed like him. I had the hands, I had the makeup all done, the hair, and I had more fun that night portraying him. But I'm trying to think, when my girls were smaller, I made a trip to New York, and they were doing a retrospective on the filmmaker Tim Burton at the MoMA. the Museum of Modern Art. And it was fantastic because a big part of the exhibition was the original Edward Scissorhands outfit. A lot of the drawings and the cartoons and things that went into, how he, the making of the movie. Of course, there was other stuff too, from his earliest childhood drawings of what he did, Tim Burton, but a big focus is always on Johnny Depp because Johnny Depp is in so many of Tim Burton's films.
And this was his first with Tim Burton. And he was very insecure about it, didn't know if he was making, Tim Burton happy with his portrayal. He only has 169 lines in the movie.
Yeah, he didn't talk that much.
He didn't talk. So everything had to be, through his face. And apparently he watched a lot of Charlie Chaplin silent films to kind of, to know how to act without saying anything. And I just thought he did a great job. Tim Burton loved him. They became friends after that. And basically, I think he became kind of his muse because he's in so many Tim Burton movies. And I liked this particular film. I loved the stylization of it. I loved the colorful, look of it. I tell you who my favorite person in the movie is, though. It's Kathy Baker.
Yes.
She plays Joyce, the one that seduces.
The hair,
That hair, when she lays back to get her hair done, and her toes curl as if she's having an orgasm, and the whole thing, just getting her hair cut, and with this, she had the cigarette, and everybody has that neighbor or had that neighbor, especially back in the 70s.
And the little dog with it.
Dog, oh my God, the little dog. Poor dog gets kicked, but he just was so wonderful with his hands, and he represented so many different things to all these different women. It wasn't, like for Joyce, it was, very sexual. For others, everybody kind of represented, something. And what's the woman who, basically said he was from hell, he was evil, as I think, or Esmeralda. And he represented so many different things to so many different
He was mirroring their experiences rather than really looking at who he was. But the thing about Johnny Depp is he has such expressions in his face that he can convey just by a look or something, mischief or innocence, or so many different things. And he's just great to look at too. I
always thought he was beautiful.
I thought he was absolutely the most dreamy guy in the world. But it was like a fantastical fairy tale, and it was a telling of, and I loved it because I never seen anything like this from the perspective of somebody who cut everything from trimming, hedges into
to the paper dolls that he does,
the paper dolls to
and the kids go crazy, and
it was really neat. Since the movie is 3 decades old, I wonder how many young people have seen it.
That would be interesting. I think it holds up. It's kind of like, you can see that it inspired other filmmakers. When you see Napoleon Dynamite, for instance, it too is this different world that you don't know if it's the 80s, the 70s, today, because it's just an amalgamation of all these different eras, crammed into one. So you can see that probably Tim Burton was inspired those filmmakers to do Napoleon. I think
he's one of my favorites. Like Wes Anderson is kind of the same way.
Wes
Anderson amazing Moonrise Kingdom is one of
Always
my absolute
know, you
favorite.
always know when you see like a Wes Anderson movie that it's Wes Anderson. Just like with Tim Burton, you know it's a Tim Burton movie. You know it's that particular filmmakers, and I think they do it very well. I don't, other filmmakers you kind of go, oh, I wonder who directed this, but you always know Tim Burton. You just
And they just keep getting better and better
yeah.
too.
Well, they probably
More,
get more money.
yeah, well, they do get more money, but the actors get better. But something about this film, um, I guess the innocence of the look, in his eyes, and
The
people
lip.
just wanted to help him,
They
except
and they did. They trusted him, and he gave them no reason. If you look at him, and he's got knives for hands. He could basically annihilate everybody. And I mean, it even implies it is when Joyce sits down to get her hair cut, and he puts the knife up to her neck as he's thinking about what kind of hairstyle he's going to give her. You get this little bit of flash of this could go
really wrong.
this could go very, very wrong, and you realize that until he starts cutting. And so you see that where Esmeralda is trying to make him be
Vilify him.
vilify him and be evil, he is actually so childlike. And children, most children, it's an innocence, and it's an innocence of love. Most children don't want to hurt anything. They just want to they want to be loved and to love. And
Right.
he's just a little boy. He's like Pinocchio. He just wants to be, he's a little
He's a
boy.
little bit like Frankenstein too.
A lot.
A lot of people, see his hands and the look, they think he's a monster, but they're judging a book by its cover. And once they figure out all the beauty that he's creating in the world, it's
The
quite fascinating.
categories are beautiful. The hair is beautiful. Everything that he's doing is beautiful. And I think beauty and love go hand in hand. So that's what he's transforming the world in, as beautiful.
I wonder what Tim Burton was like as a child when I see these shows. His imagination is so boundless, but the thing about Johnny Depp, there's a lot of beautiful men who make it in Hollywood. But the difference between this guy, Johnny Depp, and others is the amount of it's like a thinking, there's, a lot of intelligence going on and even the simplest roles with very little language. And I do believe that if you can convey a story without any words, just by your actions, I mean, I'm fascinated with that. I just could not take my eyes off of this film when I started watching it. It just went way too fast for me. So I
And
hope that
so
everybody out there really
beautiful.
does watch this film.
It's just beautiful because and he's made it a beautiful world because it is through the eyes of Edward. And so like I said, the transition between his black and white world and then this colorful world is just, it's a 180. And it's beautiful. And then this woman tries to make it, she vilifies him, and it's sad.
And all the characters in this film are really expertly chosen because I mean Kathy Baker was fantastic. She just kind of stole scenes in her ecstasy about having and that's the way women are. Women when they go to the beauty shop, their expectations being a hairdresser are so high. They see these fashion pictures and everything, and he actually creates something beyond their realm of thinking, and they're just like, I would have never guessed I could have ever had
No.
or worn this.
And
And I think it's kind of filling that a women's fantasy because a good part of a woman's personal um, beliefs is on how she looks. It's the way society has kind of groomed us to be. But as a, a person that's worked in the beauty industry most of my life, it's very important. And now it's almost getting as important for both men and women because
Well, think about
grooming,
hair. Well, think about hair,
yeah,
for
it's
instance.
adornment. It's adornment,
It's adornment, and it's your first thing of that you do,
It's the frame for
is
your
is your
persona.
face, it is your sign of beauty. And when you lose that, like Edie Beale, who lost all of her
White
hair.
Gardens, yeah.
So always, she wore, the scarf, around her head,
With
and
coach.
with the brooch. And it is, hair is beauty to most people. That's our outward, that's how we portray our personality. Whether we spike our hair, or
Make it colors
or
or,
color it, or
curl it.
I cut mine off, and started over, and trying to embrace my gray, even though it's not coming in like like an old woman should. um but I'm embracing that. And I think, yeah, the hair is fantasy.
It is.
It
It is.
is.
And you always see, the Farrah Fawcett's, the Jennifer Anistons, the girls that create the it cuts, and
The
everybody wants
swinging of the hair.
and emulate that. And even the Shah Rukh Khan with his, where he kicks it back. It was it's a big aspect of our, belief that we're fitting in, and, and because, there's trends in hairdressing, but also that if we just get the right haircut, we're going to be beautiful.
Well, if I come to you to have my hair cut, I believe that all my problems are going to go away if I get
Right.
this particular
They
hair.
will. They will.
Well, and that's, and all their problems seem to go away when Edward Scissorhands came to their neighborhood.
Years ago, I've learned a long time ago that we are not just our hair, and I've always said beauty comes within. But years ago, I read a young woman's book that had got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in Houston. Her name was Joni Rogers, and she wrote this book, Bald in the Land of Big Hair, which cracked me up because everybody thinks of Southerners, Texans as having big Texas hair. And she lost all her hair and she felt like she lost her identity. So
Most
she
people
wrote this
do.
very humorous book about having cancer and then surviving and getting her hair back. But I decided that I was going to show people that we're not just about our hair. Uh, when we're readers, we're beautiful within because we're educating ourselves. So I had this hair contest for the best wig and best bald head. And word got out. The book was published by HarperCollins, and the word got out to the Oprah Winfrey Organization. So they called HarperCollins and wanted to know if I would possibly allow them to come in and cover that book event with Joni Rogers and our contest. And they did. It was one of the biggest turnouts I've ever had for a book club. I think I had like over 200 people in my home.
Need to be
And, and we had best wig. I can't remember who won the best wig contest, but I remember that Fred McKenzie, who was in his 80s, was bald, won the best bald head. And I've never seen a man more thrilled in his life for the attention of being the best bald head. And we had more fun with it. And that um, aired on Oprah's Oxygen Network. And we the thing about it is, and I've been saying this for decades now because we're in going into our 23rd year. It really is important to us, but at the same time, we need to also recognize that your actions too have to be as beautiful as the way you want your hair to be, because if not, it doesn't matter how good you look on the outside.
If you're
People,
not beautiful inside. And Edward Scissorhands, even though he looked kind of weird and crazy, he was beautiful on the inside.
he was completely, he was an innocent,
Just
and he
innocent,
was just
beautiful.
wanting to create beauty in the world. And I've always found the film very inspiring to me. And I've always found Johnny Depp very inspiring to me on his movie choices. And I just wanted to celebrate him this this is my birthday week. So the things I'm picking this month are really important. I wanted to celebrate him for all the years that he's given us such wonderful films, especially Edward Scissorhands. Now, um, beautiful cinematography. I don't remember much about the music. Do you remember? It's I haven't.
Elfman did the music.
Yeah, well, that's
He
the other collaborator
he
with.
wanted the Cure to do it.
Yeah, the other collaborator with.
Like the guy that's in the Cure, and but he didn't want to do it, and he was doing something else and didn't want to do it. So Danny Elfman came in, and now Danny Elfman does most of Tim Burton stuff. Danny
I found that my favorite filmmakers use the same actors. Tom Hanks uses his people. You know, uh, Tim Burton uses Johnny Depp and Winona and every, Beetlejuice, all these other things. And then Wes Anderson uses people like Bill Murray,
Owen Wilson,
yeah, Owen Wilson, and Bruce
Schwartzman.
Willis. I mean, he uses people, um, and I find that is because when you work with those people and you develop those relationships, that as you progress in films, they just keep getting better and better. It's
Well,
kind of
I agree. I do. I kind of like that. I don't. I like seeing them all together. I like seeing them acting. I wasn't that crazy about French Dispatch. I didn't think it was as good of a Wes Anderson movie as it could have been. But I do. I always like seeing the same actors working
I
together.
I
I do. I
didn't
have
get
a
into
favorite.
French Dispatch as much either, but the one before that, I absolutely adore about the hotel.
The hotel was amazing. I loved that. I loved Moonrise Kingdom. I loved
That's my favorite though.
I think Moonrise Kingdom is my favorite, but I love the Royal Tenenbaums. I can
The
watch it.
Rebel Tenenbaums. Oh my
I
gosh.
loved it, even though they hated Gene Hackman, which he played kind of a jerk, and apparently he was a jerk on the movie set. They didn't like him too much. But I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie. But as far as like Tim Burton movies go, he liked that that horror genre, but it's
Oh yeah, you remember the
it's
Coraline? That was the most horrific film about the girl who got buttons instead of eyes. Oh,
yes.
that was hard for me. My kids just love it. They're grown now, but they love Coraline, and it was the creepiest, darkest movie I think I've ever seen.
But you know what? It's not. He was a fan of the horror movies past, like all the Vincent Price, which is why Vincent Price is in this movie.
Right.
Even he was ill at the time, and I think that was
What's the
around
one with the aliens? The Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks.
I
Love,
actually love
but
that.
he does that he combines the comedy with what those old horror movies kind of did, and the kitsch and the kind of the cheesiness of it, and he just kind of embraces it and lets it go, and there's comedy in that, and
Dark Shadows. Remember Dark Shadows?
Shadows.
With Johnny Depp. I hardly recognized him as Barnabas. That was pretty incredible. But it just goes to show that I don't even think we have touched on the range of Johnny Depp yet. I think we're going to
I
be.
don't think so either, and I don't think people realize he does have an incredible range.
He does.
He really honestly does, and he
Tonto, Tonto, and the
Tonto.
Lone Ranger. And the bird on his head, I am fascinated with that one too. So
And,
there's so many.
he's a study. He studies. He doesn't just like go out there and act. I mean, he studies. Actors, I can tell who doesn't study. There's just they fall flat. He does not. You can tell that he studies it.
Every project that he takes on in film, I think he champions. You know, if there's any, I can't think of any film other than there was one, I can't remember the name of it now, that was about Nazis. Did you see that one? It was
Mm.
strange. I couldn't figure that one out. But all of the most of the films I've seen lately, the most recent one about him being the war correspondent photographer
Yeah.
was fantastic. It was really, I
He just really is, one of the best actors of he's my generation.
yeah,
He's my age. And he is one of the best actors of my generation, I think.
I do
You
too.
know, I
And
mean,
you can almost follow my journey in film by the films that I'm picking for the the book and film club. If I went back to the very beginning of the first film that was, you know, important to me. I mean, one of the first was Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte with Betty Davis. I saw it in the third grade. Scared the living
oh, I know that's, and
and
I never
Hindrance in the
now
Birds. Those were some of the first films that I ever really remembered, and To Kill a Mockingbird. But if you watch, the timeline of all those films, it it's like the same way with the cars that you drove. You
absolutely.
you go through all the series of cars and it kind of shows your just like the books that we
I
read.
and I get stuck on I get stuck on certain books. I get stuck on certain movies. I like right now I'm kind of into period films.
Me too. I love the
I just
Bridgertons
for some
and the Gilded
reason
Age and the House of Elliot and all of those films. We were just talking about that the other day too. But
Howard's End is one of is Stars did a 4-part miniseries of Howard's End instead of it being such a small little movie that Emma Thompson did. This expands on the book, which I absolutely love, and I don't know. I just it's one of my favorites. Um, Period movies right now, but then I will turn around and something else will be
like Elvis, we both fell in love with the film new Buzz.
the Boz Lerman film.
I mean, my
Also
gosh.
stylized. You know a Boz Lerman film when you see it.
Well,
He
it's a rock opera type. It's almost like a theatrical
it's like
production.
opera. It's very operatic.
Yeah.
I mean, even
So,
Strictly
uh,
Ballroom was.
because of my love for Elvis was some of the first movies that I used to see at the drive-in. I was just looking up some of them. The most popular film that was ever made by Elvis in the order that they, came in was King Creole, which was done in 1958. And I absolutely love that film. The second film was Trouble with Girls. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I just saw you and I both saw Elvis, that I want to pick an Elvis film for next month. We've got to check because Elvis films are hard to find other than at Graceland. So we're going to find a really great Elvis film. I'll put it up on our calendar of events, and we'll be picking one that. But I grew up on Elvis, and so when I saw the Elvis film, the recent one starring um, Austin
King
Butler.
Creole is on Pluto TV.
I don't know if I can get
It's free. It's free with that. It's free with ads. It's just an app. You can load it onto your Fire
Okay,
TV
let's
or
go. Let's
um,
go with King Creole because I think you're from Louisiana. I'm from Texas. That would be a good one to
I
do.
think that would be a really good one. I like that one.
We'll just talk about Elvis and Graceland. And The thing about films that is important is I'm a big reader, and I run the International Public Queens and Timber Guys book club. But because I've always loved films, and my aunt was the ticket taker at the drive-in theater and at the Princess Theater, so we went to the movies a lot. It's, to me, a film is like a visual book. So when I saw the film To Kill a Mockingbird, I fell in love and I identified with Scout. I immediately wanted to go read the book. So they go hand in hand. That's why this is the book and film club. Books, stimulate us to want to see it in film. And then
I'm
when we
a
see the
visual
film,
person,
yeah,
and
I
I'm
read a
very
book like a
visual.
movie. Yeah.
And when I write a book, I write it because, well, basically because I studied screenwriting, and I write it like a screenplay. I mean, not like a script, but I write it visually. I try to let the reader have a little bit of imagination with it. Pat Conroy was a lot that way too, because he was very dialogue driven, and he just let the scene unfold organically. It wasn't, he didn't, spend pages upon pages describing the house or describing, whatever. He just kind of let it unfold organically, and especially through the dialogue. And
Dialogue was
I love dialogue. I love to sit in a cafe and listen to the way people talk, and how they act, and all, and that, I guess that's why I too like film, is because it's like it's a book come to life.
Well, if there are any authors out there that's book has gone to film, especially if you're Pulpwood Queens or Timber Guys, or if there's any films that were based upon a book that you know about, we love to hear from readers. So subscribe to our Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel and comment, because we really want to open up the conversation, because see, it's all about the story. And if the story isn't, if the screenplay isn't great, if the book isn't fantastic, more than likely the film is going to be handicapped from the start. But at the same time, there's a lot of films written directly as screenplays with no book, but that's still writing and it's still storytelling. So we're exploring storytelling through all the arts. Yeah.
You've got me. I just love a good story. Tell me a good story.
And
And
that's
Edward Scissorhands
important
was
too,
a great
Tracy,
story.
that if you read a good story, it's important too that you have a conversation with others, because we all bring our own experiences and education and cultures and peoples. That's why we're an international book club. People see things differently. I've been watching the remarks on our Shah Rukh Khan Friends and Film Club, and people from India are seeing different perspectives than here we do in America. And that I want to build the bridge where we have a true understanding of, where this story was coming from. So unless we're engaging, there's no right or wrong answers. We're all just trying to learn
And
more about each other.
I do find it's interesting to contrast American film with a Bollywood film. They unfold so differently.
So differently.
In America, and in American screenwriting, you're taught to write a screenplay a certain way. You have your introduction, and by page 30, you're supposed to have the turning point that puts you really into the story, that the character, oh my god, drama's happening, something's happened to this character, and it has to start at page 30, and then you have all this stuff happening, and then by page 105, you need to wrap it up, because if at page 120 you're done, that's 2 hours. And I find I'll tell you, somebody that I really love is Quentin Tarantino, who, when he did Pulp Fiction,
Yeah.
he threw that whole screenplay formula out the window, completely just shredded it. And I loved it because we're so taught to be so formula, driven. Writing a Hallmark movie. I was working on one of your author's books to turn it into a Hallmark movie, and I had the formula sitting in front of me. It has to be formulaic. They all are written the exact same. It's like romance novels. I've read romance novels. Sometimes you just want to read a romance novel because
Oh,
to
I love them.
it's escapism. But at the same time, if you've read one, you've read every single one.
Except when you watch a Bollywood film,
Yes,
because
they're they throw
the Bollywood, the Indian films, and really from Tollywood and Bollywood and Sandalwood, all over India. I discovered them during the time of COVID. And for somebody who reads as many books as I have through my lifetime and running my book club and seen so many films, my senses were in shock because I didn't see things happening, coming, right when I thought a film was over, oh no, honey, that's just the first part.
You got another hour left.
And I happen to love that. That's why when Rich Man, Poor Man came out, is I think one of the first syndicated series on television, I was totally addicted. And I'm right now hooked to Younger, which has 8 seasons on Netflix, and it's all about the book industry. If you have not seen it, you've got to watch it. But it's a romance too. So I'm my friend Heidi's here, and we're trying to get through season 2. But I think at some time we might even address great mini series, that have been we've had Game of Thrones, we've been watching Frontier with Jason Momoa, which is one of my favorite things that he's done about the wonderful fur industry and up in the the northeast. Fabulous story.
Any kind of miniseries, but I love these miniseries that are based on books.
Yeah.
So because they're a limited series, like Big Little Lies.
Yes.
It's a book, and I love the way that it unfolded. I didn't like that they went a little further with it outside of the book. It kind of didn't ruin it for me.
It makes great discussion because you can talk about which is better, the book or the movie. And I have to almost 99% of the time say, I usually like the book better. Yeah, because the intent of the author, but every once in a while, I'll watch a film and say, you know what? I think I thought the book was kind of silly, but the movie was a little bit more important. So that's why we get together, everybody, and discuss it. But we don't want it to be just Tracy and I. We want everybody to jump on board and discuss it with us. If there's a favorite film,
there's no wrong answers to any kind of film, because everybody sees a film different. What I see in a film, Kathy sees something totally different, or my film friends or whatever. We can sit and analyze a film all day long. We all see there's so many different takes, and nobody's is right or wrong. That's just just like this, like Edward Scissorhands. It comes from his point of view. The whole movie is basically his point of view, and it's whether it's whatever you want to see in a movie, that's you see it. It's just I like it. Everybody to just be organic.
It's timeless too. So if you have not seen Edward Scissorhands starring Johnny Depp, I suggest that you watch it before too much longer, and I think you'll be really impressed. And follow us on the Kathy L. Murphy channel. If you please subscribe, it will let you know every time a new video that I've recorded posts. And we oftentimes have the authors in attendance. And on the Book and Film Club, we would love to have more of the screenwriters, the the filmmakers, the directors, and I've had actors, like I did one with Candy Clark, who starred in the was up for the Academy Award in American Graffiti. To hear her experience and working later on with David Bowie, absolutely priceless. So I think it's time to wrap it up, Tracy. I
Yeah.
can't thank you enough for joining me tonight. We'll be
Pleasure, as always.
Elvis will be in the building for the next thing with King Creole, and everybody that's going to be streaming on Pluto. I'll be checking it out. Thank you for joining me. Any last comments to everybody?
Just come follow us and come join the fun.
That's right. And we'll see you the last Sunday every month. Tracy is my co-host for the Pulpwood Queen Shah Rukh Khan Friends and Fan Club. And starting in December, we're going to get a new Shah Rukh Khan film with Pathan. And then in January, right after our girlfriend weekend, there's another movie. So I think he's got 23 films in the works. So we mostly discuss Shah Rukh Khan films or films from the Bollywood India industry. So thank you all for listening and watching. This goes up on the Kathy L. Murphy YouTube channel. Subscribe. And Tracy, it's all about the story. We'll see you down the road at the movies, okay?
Absolutely. Take care.
Now, bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.